Hello there, welcome to the Saroy channel wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. What an exciting story this is. Alicia has visited the graveyard, and it would seem she's had a rather extraordinary encounter in the graveyard with a little Bigfoot who has been peering at her from behind her mother's gravestone. So we're going to find out where this extremely exciting story leads. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell and the thumbs up, and let's continue with the final, most exciting part of our story tonight.
Good Lord, are you telling me that you were the baby knocked out of her pram when my son Tommy ran your mother over in the road? He was 12 years old at the time. A day doesn't go by when I don't grieve the passing of your mother. I always lay roses or flowers at her grave to pay my respects every week religiously. I am so desperately sorry for what my son did all those years ago, running over your mother in the car. He was an absolute idiot taking my car like that. He didn't even know how to drive at the time. He was showing off to his best friend Liam. I don't want to make any excuses for my son, really I don't. But I assure you, at the time he was a rambunctious 12-year-old, very foolish boy. Sometimes he could be his own worst enemy. And when he took a joyride that fateful afternoon, well, it was the worst day of my life. Let's just say, when I realized what my son had done, I was devastated. There are no words, no words.
Oh, you're Mr. Tanner then, said Alicia. I'm so pleased to finally make your acquaintance, Mr. Tanner.
I sincerely doubt you mean that, said Mr. Tanner. You're just being very kind, young lady. Why would you be pleased to meet the likes of me, after what my Tommy did to your mother? I cannot even comprehend. I would expect you'd want to have nothing to do with the likes of me. On the day your mother died, your father came over to my house. He punched me so many times, I became concussed, and I was sent for a couple of days in hospital for observation. I couldn't blame your father for being so angry. Had I been wearing his shoes, I'd probably have done much the same.
I'm sorry my father did that to you, Mr. Tanner. I can't apologize enough. It's not like him to behave like that. He wasn't in his right mind. Look, Mr. Tanner, said Alicia, wrapping the somewhat startled man in an effusive warm hug that he certainly hadn't seen coming. Stop blaming yourself from what happened all those years ago. What happened to my mother is hardly your fault, and I don't blame you, nor do I blame Tommy.
You don't?
Asked Mr. Tanner, looking somewhat bemused.
But why not? Tommy killed your mother. He's my son. At the very least you should blame me for raising my son to be so very irresponsible.
Alicia rolled her eyes. No parent is responsible for their children's actions. Not every time. Sometimes children do things that are out of their parents' control. It's not your fault. Mr. Tanner, boys at the age of 12, well, they can be really unruly, doing really a whole lot of foolish things. Yes, it was devastating what happened to my mother, but it happened over 25 years ago. You need to stop beating yourself up about it. This can't be good for your health, you know. Mr. Tanner shook his head sadly. There were tears in his eyes.
Your mother was a wonderful woman. She lit up the place wherever she went. It's a tragedy she died before her time. It just isn't fair, is it? I would have gladly taken her place in a heartbeat. But I couldn't, unfortunately. But I would have done so in a second.
Of course it's tragic. But think about it, Mr. Tanner. Tragedy does happen in people's lives. There's nothing you can do about it. If we could travel back in time and change things, of course we would. But that's not a possibility. So we have to move on, don't we? We have to be strong. We have to be courageous. My father forgave Tommy a long time ago, Mr. Tanner. He said if he didn't forgive your son, he'd be an absolute hypocrite. Because guess what? At the same age, he set the yard shed in his parents' home on fire, by mistake, of course. His mother was furious, And then another time, he tried to make chips for himself. He was 12 years old also. He had got home from school, and then he got distracted by the dog, who'd run off into the yard with a trainer in his mouth. My dad was very proud of those trendy trainers of his. He knew if he didn't remove the trainer from the dog's jaws, they'd be absolutely ruined. So he ran around the yard chasing the dog, who thought it was all a lovely game. He tried to retrieve his trainer. All the while he completely forgot that he had a pot of hot oil on the stove. Luckily my grandmother returned home in the nick of time. She managed to put the fire out. If she hadn't returned home when she did, that old Victorian house would have been reduced to cinder. I'm most sure of that. So let's not kid, bad things can happen when you're a young child, not really aware of the consequences of some of your actions. What I'm trying to say, Mr. Tanner, is things happen. So I'm begging you to let what happened to my mother go. It wasn't your fault.
You are very sweet, just like your mother was in life, young lady. Very kind of you to say these nice things to me.
I'm not being kind, Mr. Tanner. I'm being sincere. Children do stupid things, especially boys who are more experimental than girls. I mean, how can a parent be expected to have eyes in the back of their heads?
Well, you're right on that one. I dare say even when I was a young boy of 12 years old, I got up to all kinds of nonsense. But Tommy, at 12 he was particularly mischievous. But after he ran over your mother, he withdrew into his shell for a long while. He became very responsible. I guess he learnt a very hard, very bitter lesson.
Tell me, Mr. Tanner, how is your son Tommy?
Well, he's very well. Of course, he felt very aggrieved by what he'd done to your mother all those years ago. But he was young at the time. He barely remembers what happened. He's married now very happily with 2 children of his own. And I know when they're old enough to drive, Tommy will never let them do what he did all those years ago to your mother.
Well, I'm glad to hear he hasn't been punishing you in the way that you have been punishing yourself, Mr. Tanner. Promise me that you'll forgive yourself for what happened to my mother. How often do you come to this graveyard?
I try to come here twice a week, said Mr. Tanner. It gives me a great deal of peace laying down flowers at your mother's grave.
This is a huge grave, Mr. Tanner. I understand you paid and erected it on my mother's behalf. When I saw the grave, I thought it belonged to an affluent family. You must have spent a fortune on it.
It was the least I could do. Besides, I do know that your mother loved trees. I wanted to get her a plot close to the wood grove over there. I knew your mother obviously appreciated yellow, because when she walked you around town in that pram of yours, you were always wearing yellow. So I guessed yellow must be a favourite colour of hers. So I ensured there were daffodils around her grave, done in the shape of a heart. It is very pretty, is it not?
You're very kind, Mr. Tanner.
So what are you doing in town, young lady? Asked Mr. Tanner. Your father left this place 25 years ago or so. No one has seen him since. I don't think he ever came back even to visit the cemetery or the grave where his wife is buried. But I suppose he never wanted to come back to the town. Maybe it was just too painful for him.
Well, you're right about that, Mr. Tanner. I want you to know my father has moved on with his life. He's very happily married now, and he's now living in Australia.
Good Lord,
said Mr. Tanner, wiping some sweat away from his forehead. He finally rose to his feet.
I didn't expect your father had emigrated from the country. I'm very pleased you say he's a happy man these days. That's very good news. I worried about him a great deal, you know, after your mother's passing. You didn't answer my one question. What on earth are you doing here in town?
Well, I've brought Primrose Cottage, haven't I? I don't know if you've noticed, but the place is being fixed up at the moment.
Oh, now that makes sense. You're the new owner of Primrose Cottage. Good Lord, I'm so pleased to see what you've done to the place. When I watched that beautiful, beautiful cottage descend into decay because of Dorothy Edge and her negligence. Bless her soul, a very nice lady she was, but she didn't do much about the upkeep of the place. Your mother made that beautiful cottage the prettiest cottage in town, and after I saw it falling apart, I thought that Primrose Cottage could never be resurrected from the dead. But you proved me wrong on that one. Good on you for fixing the cottage up. But I would have thought coming back to a town where your mother's life was taken from her far too soon would be far too painful for someone like you."
Alicia shrugged her shoulders nonchalantly. "My father could never come back to this town. Not permanently, of course. I suspect it would be too painful for him. I was a baby when the tragedy happened, Mr. Tanner, so of course I have no recollection of it. But I feel connected to Primrose Cottage. Maybe it was because I was born on the kitchen floor there, and for me it's like going back to my roots. I know my father would probably never understand that, but I feel connected to my mother here."
"Ah, I remember that story about you being born on the kitchen floor at Primrose Cottage," said Mr. Tanner, chuckling. "It was all over town after your mother gave birth to you there. Your father delivered you before the medics even got to the cottage in time. It seemed you were very eager to be born."
"I suppose I was, but perhaps it was because I really liked this town, and I really do, and all its people, Mr. Tanner, including you. Coming here really does make me feel close to my late mother. I had no idea she had a gravestone that I could visit here, so this has been a very pleasant surprise to me, and today is my first time that I've actually visited it."
"Well, for the record, I'm very, very glad you're back in town. But I am surprised that none of the locals have mentioned it to me that you were coming back. For nothing ever stays secret in this town for very long."
"I don't think people wanted you to know I was here, to tell you the truth, Mr. Tanner. They thought it might be very upsetting and distressing for you to know that I was back, bringing back old history, so to speak. They thought you'd suffered enough."
"Well, it's funny the way people think. It's kind that they're concerned about me," said Mr. Tanner. "To tell you the truth, I suspect I would have fretted had I known you were back. But meeting you has changed everything. In fact, this morning I feel as if a heavy burden has been lifted off my heart. I feel a whole lot lighter after meeting you. And I can assure you, I have not felt this way in a long time. Your forgiveness means the world to me. And it would mean a lot to Tommy as well. I'm most sure of that."
"As I keep telling you, Mr. Tanner, there's nothing to forgive. Things happen. Tragedy happens every day all around the world, and there's nothing anyone can do to stop it. And it just is part of what life is, the tapestry of life, I suspect. Anyway, it's always best to move on from things like that, don't you think?"
"You're very right, young lady. You speak a lot of common sense."
Mr. Tanner bent down in what you would describe as a downward dog, yoga-like position, to pick up what was left of the disfigured purple roses lying on the ground. He placed them in Ruth's grave, and Alicia and Mr. Tanner stood side by side, staring at the gravestone for a long moment. Then all of a sudden, Alicia saw the face again, staring at her mischievously from behind the gravestone. Mr. Tanner had seen the face as well. The face peered at them curiously, and rather reticently came out of its hiding place. Mr. Tanner's jaw dropped to the ground. Alicia began to blink, as if she was almost certain what she was seeing just could not be real, could it? But standing before them, larger than life, was a little 3-foot Bigfoot, with a playful, boyish energy, and he stared at both Alicia and Mr. Tanner with an inquisitiveness that was so palpable you could almost touch it. The cute little Bigfoot had a pear in his hand, which he had probably intended to give to Alicia, but remembering to mind his manners, he split the pear in 2 halves very neatly and gave Alicia and Mr. Tanner half of the pear each. Then he waited for them expectantly to take a bite. Alicia did not want to offend the little Bigfoot, so she took a large bite out of the pear and made some exaggerated noises in her throat as to how much she was thoroughly enjoying eating it. The pear was indeed sweet and juicy. Now, that is delicious. Oh, my word, what a juicy pear this is. Yummy. Mr. Tanner followed Alicia's example, and he took a great big bite out of the half-piece of pear and made some appreciative noises in the back of his throat.
Oh, delicious. Oh, what a sweet, juicy pear this is.
The little Bigfoot's face lit up with delight. Seconds later he was gone, like a shooting star, and came running back with 2 more pears, which he gave to both Mr. Tanner and Alicia. There was an expression of delighted expectation written all over his cute little face, rather like when a child feeds a dog a special treat and gets some kind of emotional reward from the dog's enthusiasm as it gobbles it up. It was as if the little male Bigfoot was waiting to be rewarded by Alicia and Mr. Tanner's reaction to the juicy pear. It was obviously a big deal for him to part with such a treat. Alicia sensed the little Bigfoot had the kindest of hearts, so she certainly didn't want to be ungrateful or nonchalant about the gift that she could so easily pick up at the corner store from Mr. Lancaster's delectable fresh produce. She was determined to make the Bigfoot happy, so she began to eat the pear with an exaggerated enthusiasm, as if it was quite possibly the most delicious thing she'd ever tasted in her entire life. She made all the yummy noises in the back of her throat that she felt would be pleasing for the little Bigfoot, and it certainly seemed to work, for his big treacle-colour eyes twinkled joyfully, and he began to chuckle at Alicia's performance, for it pleased him greatly. "Oh, my word! The first pear you gave me was yummy, but this is even more delicious. It is so sweet and tasty, so very juicy. Yummy! This is delicious. You need to taste yours, Mr. Tanner." Not to be outdone by Alicia's masterful performance, Mr. Tanner, who'd never been the best actor in the world, followed Alicia's example, while the Bigfoot watched him bite into his pear, which was so juicy some of the juice trickled down his cheek and gathered around his white beard.
Delicious. Absolutely delicious. Very, very good. Thank you, young man, for this lovely gift,
said Mr. Tanner, continuing to make some suitable noises in the back of his throat. The Bigfoot chuckled again happily, for he had been entertained by the both of them, and was satisfied by their appreciative performances. It was as if he had that innocent childlike charm, and that eagerness to please, which made the little Bigfoot seem all the more endearing. All of a sudden the little Bigfoot looked slightly alarmed, momentarily disquieted. His kind dark eyes widened, becoming extremely round, when a loud whistle rang out from the woodgrove, almost as if the owner of the whistle was calling him. It was as if the little Bigfoot had known running off into the graveyard like this, and communicating with humans, was not exactly permitted. He glanced rather anxiously towards the woodgrove, with the look of a nervous child that has been caught by its mother with its hand in the cookie jar. He let out a return whistle, and then darted straight back to the woodgrove at a lightning speed. In the distance, both Alicia and Mr. Tanner could see a vague, tall, shadowy figure, that they couldn't make out very well because it was so ambiguous, but they assumed it must be the Bigfoot's mother. She was obscure and foggy. You couldn't see her clearly. The 2 figures just appeared to vanish, and for a long while Alicia and Mr. Tanner didn't say a word to each other. They had been shell-shocked by what had just happened. No one would have expected a casual visit to a graveyard would lead to an encounter with a little male Bigfoot that had seemed determined to interact with the both of them, despite its obvious reticence. Finally, Mr. Tanner broke the silence. At this point he was rubbing his long, wispy white beard in a gesture of uncertainty that so often comes when someone has experienced something a little out of the normal.
"Good Lord," said Mr. Tanner. "Did that really happen? I'm trying to make sense of it all. I was about to faint a second time today. This has been the most idiosyncratic, unorthodox day of my life. I thought Bigfoots were, legendary creatures, but we've just seen a little Bigfoot, and I'm in shock. Look at me," he said, shaking. He lifted up his arm so that Alicia could see,
It was actually trembling. But you weren't scared of the little Bigfoot, were you, Mr. Tanner? He was so sweet, so unthreatening.
Of course he was sweet and unthreatening, and I wasn't scared of him. I'm shaking because I'm taken aback, because I'm so bewildered, so caught off guard, you could say. I am in shock. It'll take me a while to recover. I've been visiting this graveyard now for 25 years, twice a week. I visit your mother's grave all the time, and nothing like this has ever happened to me before, until you came along, Alicia. Are you one of these people that attracts unusual things to yourself? Because it would certainly seem so.
Absolutely not, Mr. Tanner. I'm as taken aback as you are. I'm also bewildered.
Well done for eating the pear in the way you did, and pretending it was the most delicious thing you'd ever tasted. I was impressed with your performance, and the Bigfoot really liked it. I had to follow your lead, because I could see that Bigfoot expected me to express some form of enthusiasm when I ate into the pear.
Well, credit to you, Mr. Tanner. You did enormously well. You were very convincing when you were eating the pear. Although, granted, I will say this, it was delicious. I wonder where the Bigfoot got the pears from.
Oh, that's very easy, said Mr. Tanner. There's an orchard of pear trees not far from here. The owner of that orchard sells some of his pears to Mr. Lancaster himself. So they're in season. So no prizes for guessing where those pears actually come from. There's always an excess in those orchards of his.
Should we tell anyone about the Bigfoot we saw, Mr. Tanner? Asked Alicia. I'm not sure anyone would believe our story. Mr. Tanner looked thoughtful for a moment.
No, it's not a good idea. For a start, people would likely think we were making it up. And you don't want people thinking that about you.
But we both saw the little Bigfoot, Mr. Tanner. He was real. This wasn't in our imagination.
True enough, he was real. But think about it. And let's just say people do believe our account. If it's all around town that you and I encountered the little chappie, here by your mother's gravestone, people might descend on this graveyard like a flock of very annoying geese, hoping to have an encounter with the little Bigfoot themselves. And I can guarantee that to a very private Bigfoot, and that's what I imagine he is. You saw how reticent the little thing was. You saw the mother. She was standing behind a tree. We couldn't see her very clearly, could we, because it was too far away for us. But I am quite sure she is even more aloof than her little son is. And those Bigfoot will not appreciate their privacy being eroded like this.
You're right, Mr. Tanner. I shan't tell anyone about our encounter. It's our secret. It would seem that encountering the little Bigfoot meant that Mr. Tanner and Alicia had bonded in a rather unusual way at the cemetery. Alicia was invited on several occasions to have dinner with the Tanner family, and it was as if all the pain from the past had been wiped away. Mrs. Tanner took Alicia to one side and personally thanked her. "My husband is a new man, thanks to you. Ever since you ran into him at the graveyard, he has got a glow to him these days. I think meeting you has brought him so much immeasurable peace. He always went to that graveyard twice a week, you know, for the last 25 years or so, to lay flowers very faithfully at your mother's grave. He blames himself for what happened to your mother all those years ago. I always tell him it was not his fault, but he never listened to me. He feels dreadfully responsible for your mother's tragic death. I always remind him that Tommy was 12 years old at the time. Kids that age can be absolute rascals, can they not? And there are times that a parent can't be watching their kid 24/7. But my assurances to my husband over the years have fallen on deaf ears until he met you, until you spoke some common sense to him. I've finally got my husband back. He's full of smiles now and jokes all the time. And you know what? I attribute this to you, Alicia. You've made him realize that accidents do happen, and he wasn't to blame for Tommy's objectionable behavior that day. He told me, of course, how he fainted in the graveyard when he saw you, because you're the spitting image of your mother. I found that very amusing," said Mrs. Tanner with a light laugh that sounded more like a musical note. Well, believe me, said Alicia, I did freak out myself when your husband fainted. I thought he'd had a heart attack in front of me. But then I realised when he kept calling me Ruth that he thought I was my mother's ghost. It was hilariously funny, but not at the time, I can assure you. Mrs. Tanner nodded her head.
Honestly, what are the people in this town like? They were extremely naughty not telling us that you had bought Primrose Cottage and moved into town. Did they not realise how shocking it might be for my husband to potentially run into you like that, when you look so uncannily like your late mother? Honestly, if the truth be told, I'm not remotely surprised he thought you were her ghost. When you first came through our front door, I personally did a double take. I could hardly believe it, because honestly, I'm not even under-exaggerating when I say you are your mother's double.
I knew I looked a lot like my mother, but I didn't think my likeness to her would startle so many people as it clearly has done. I'm sorry I shocked both you and your husband. Mrs. Tanner gave Alicia's shoulder a nudge.
I don't think you need to be sorry about anything, dear. Your coming back to this small town is the best thing that has ever happened to the Tanner family. I'd never have believed that was possible, but the change in my husband's personality is utterly remarkable thanks to you. He's back to the wonderful man I married before the tragic accident ever occurred, and I, for one, am so delighted about that.
Alicia was regularly invited to dinner at the Tanner home, and one night Tommy Tanner was in attendance at dinner, along with the Tanner's youngest son, who was a year older than Alicia. His name was Cullen. Tommy Tanner was apologetic about driving over Alicia's mother all those years ago, and the two embraced in a warm, very emotional hug, while Tommy shed a few tears. It's all over and done with, said Alicia. Don't get upset. We move on from here now. You were young at the time. These things happen. You're absolutely forgiven, so don't be so hard on yourself.
But I hate what I did all those years ago, said Tommy Tanner. I can't believe what a prize idiot I was.
What nobody could have anticipated was when Alicia and Cullen Tanner laid eyes on each other for the first time. There were fireworks between the two of them, a very definite chemistry that could not be denied. Alicia was extremely worried that Cullen would never ask her out, based on what had happened to her mother all those years ago, but Cullen did not disappoint. They went out on their very first date, and within a year the two of them were engaged. Alicia knew telling her father that she was marrying a Tanner would not go down well with him. She hadn't even told him she'd bought Primrose Cottage. She had delayed telling him that, or that she'd moved to the small town. She hadn't had the courage to tell him this to date, but now she was marrying a Tanner in 6 months' time, so the cat would finally have to be let out of the bag. Alicia was shaking as she called her father in Australia. "Hi, Dad," she said.
Alicia,
said her father, sounding delighted.
How lovely to hear from you. This has been a while coming. I've been thinking about you as it happens. How are things going for you in New York?
Well, actually, Dad, I asked Granny not to tell you, but I'm not actually living in New York anymore. I haven't been living there for quite a while, actually.
Good Lord, Alicia, you are a dark horse. Why would you keep something like this from me? Your job is in New York, is it not?
Yes, it's in New York, but I'm very fortunate, Dad. These days, a lot of people can work from home because of technology and stuff, and I'm one of those fortunate people, it would seem.
Well, you are very fortunate to be able to work from home. There's no doubt about that. It wasn't like that in my time. So where is this new home of yours, then? Asked her father rather gingerly. Why didn't you tell me you'd moved, Alicia? Why all this secrecy? You're normally so straightforward about things. What's going on?
Well, I didn't want to tell you I'd moved.
But why ever not, love? You don't have to keep secrets from me. I'm an open book.
It's just complicated, Dad, that's all.
Moving is not complicated, love. In my experience, most things in life are pretty straightforward.
Dad, I wasn't sure how you'd react, that's all, when I told you the truth.
Why are you speaking in riddles, Alicia? You know you can tell me anything. If this is about your grandmother being lonely because you're no longer living in New York, you don't have to worry about that. Your grandmother is a very independent woman. She's got lots of friends. So if you don't live in New York, it really does not matter.
Dad, it's not about Granny. It's what I've got to say to you that I'm concerned about. I'm sorry, you're not going to like it.
What is it that I'm not going to like, Alicia? Why don't I like the sound of this? You're making me very, very nervous.
Well, because I don't think you're going to like what I have to tell you. But I'm going to say it anyway, Dad. I bought Primrose Cottage. I'm living in the small town you and Mum moved to 25 years ago or so.
You what?
Came her father's shocked response.
Is this some kind of weird joke, Alicia?
No, Dad, it's not a joke. I really have purchased Primrose Cottage. You should have seen the state the place was in when I initially purchased it. It was falling apart. A woman called Dorothy Edge was living there. She was a hoarder. And you can't believe it, everything was crumbling. But I've sorted it out.
I don't care what kind of a state Primrose Cottage was in, Alicia, when you bought it. Why would you want to go back to a cottage me and your mother bought all those years ago and hash up all the pain of the past? I don't even want to think about that small town ever again. What on earth is wrong with you? Why would you go back there?
Dad, the last thing I want to do is to upset you. That's why I never told you about what I did. About buying Primrose Cottage, I mean.
Well, you're doing a great job of doing that, love, keeping secrets. Did you not realize I want to forget about that part of my life? And now you're hashing it up all over again. Thanks for that.
Dad, this isn't about you. Don't take it so personally. This is about me. That's why I didn't tell you about this. I didn't want to hurt you. But I really, really wanted to move here. It's hard to explain.
But why the hell would you want to do that, Alicia? It makes no sense to me. What am I not getting here? Why would you want to go chasing after the ghosts of the past? You'll only get yourself badly hurt, opening up old family wounds like this.
I wanted to be close to Mum, Dad. I know she's dead, but I feel connected to her in this town. By the way, I visited her grave at the cemetery. Why on earth didn't you tell me about Mum's burial place? I can't believe, Dad, you gave me the impression that Mum's ashes were sprinkled out at sea. That wasn't true. Why did you deceive me like that? There was a long, rather uncomfortable and awkward pause at the other end of the line, and Alicia could hear her father making an awkward grunting-like sound.
I'm sorry, love. I admit that was wrong for me to do, very wrong. I'm not proud of myself. I didn't tell you about your mother's gravesite. I just didn't want you going there, did I? I didn't want you visiting the place. I didn't want all that history being hashed up like it's obviously being hashed up now. I just thought it would cause a great deal of upset. I thought it was best to let sleeping dogs lie. I just thought it was better not to mention it all. I know it was wrong of me. I do apologize.
Dad, it was very upsetting not to know about Mum's resting place. What you did was not acceptable. I spoke to Granny, and she was also under the impression you had scattered Mum's ashes out to sea. You kept the secret from the both of us, and that was not kind of you.
Look, love, your mother's death broke my heart, you know it did. I was worried if I ever went back to the town and visited your mum's grave, it would bring back so many painful memories, excruciatingly painful memories. I wanted to draw a line in the sand, didn't I, for the both of us? Is that so hard for you to understand? So I suspect you now have seen what an incredibly over-the-top grave it is in that graveyard that Mr. Tanner erected. Honestly, that man, he just built the most ridiculously extravagant gravestone to remember your mother by. It was over the top, if you ask me, but I suppose it was his way of making an apology to her. But it didn't wash with me for a second.
Dad, I thought you'd forgiven Tommy Tanner and the Tanner family. Why do I feel as if you're still harbouring residual animosity towards them, so to speak?
I have forgiven the Tanners, and I've forgiven Tommy Tanner. I don't feel animosity towards them, love. I've moved on from there. Tommy Tanner was only 12 years old when it happened. He was devastated about what he did to your mother. But it still doesn't take away the fact that your mother died tragically. And that town, along with Primrose Cottage, is for me the scene of great devastation.
Dad, what Mr. Tanner did was very kind. I think he erected a fabulous gravestone to remember Mum by. It's a kind tribute to who she was in life. Mr. Tanner visits Mum's grave twice a week and has done so for the last 25 years, I'll have you know. He's never been able to come to terms with Mum's death, but I told him to let it all go. It's not as if what happened to Mum is his fault anyway, and no one ever should go through life weighed down by guilt, should they?
Absolutely not, love. I agree with you on that. I'm very sorry to hear Mr. Tanner blames himself for your mother's passing. It wasn't his fault. It was a terrible accident. But why are you talking to me about Mr. Tanner?
Because he's a nice man, Dad, that's why. And he lives in town. And I can hardly avoid him, can I? There's something else you should know, Dad. And I don't know how to tell you this. I don't know how you're going to react, actually. And I'm quite nervous to tell you.
Well, frankly, love, you've told me you've moved into Primrose Cottage in the small town. So as far as I'm concerned, I don't think there's anything you could say that could be more shocking than that to me.
Dad, Mr. Tanner is soon to become my father-in-law.
What? Is this some kind of weird joke, love? Don't tell me you're going to marry the young boy who killed your mother. No way, you can't be doing that.
No, I'm not marrying Tommy Tanner, Dad. I'm marrying his younger brother. He's a year older than me. His name is Cullen. We've fallen hard for each other, really hard, Dad. I really, really love him. I'm sorry if this has upset you, but you can't help who you fall in love with, can you, Dad? And I've fallen in love with a Tanner.
So let's get this right. You're going to marry the brother of the young man that ran your mother down in the road and tipped you out of your pram. Are you absolutely insane, love? I can't believe you're telling me this. It all feels like a bad, bad dream.
I know how it sounds, Dad, and it probably does sound bad to you, and I apologise for that, but I'm not insane. I really am not. I'm in love with this man. I'm in love with Cullen Tanner. It is what it is. I can't change the way I feel. I wouldn't deliberately choose to fall in love with a Tanner, Dad, but that's what's happened. And I really love the Tanner family. Mrs. Tanner is amazing. Mr. Tanner is the nicest man you could ever hope to meet, and I'm genuinely glad he's going to be my father-in-law. And as for Cullen Tanner, well, he's just absolutely wonderful. I just have fallen for him hard. And I've got to know Tommy Tanner, Dad, and he is so apologetic for what happened. He can't believe what he did when he was 12 years old. We all make mistakes, don't we? You've got to let your deep inner anger go, Dad.
Look, I can't stop you from marrying Cullen, can I? If you say you love him so much. So my opinion doesn't really count for much, does it anyway, because you're going to marry him whether I like it or not? Apart from anything else, it may surprise you to know, Alicia, but your happiness matters more to me than anything else in the world. But you must forgive me if I'm not ecstatic about what you've just told me. It's going to take a while to soak in before I get my head around this. I hope you appreciate that. But if you love the man, then you must marry him. I can't stop you from doing that.
Of course I love him, Dad, and I love you too. I'll speak to you later when you're ready to talk about this. Think about everything I've told you. I know it's a bit of a bombshell.
You can tell me that, love. I'll speak to you later. Let me think about everything.
Alicia had been relieved that the conversation with her father had gone marginally better than she had anticipated. So later that day she decided to take some flowers to the graveyard, to have a chat with her mother, to tell her everything that had been going on. Alicia found great comfort in going to visit her mother's grave and talking to her about her life and her romantic relationship with Cullen in the small town. She'd hoped to have another sighting of the little Bigfoot that had given her and Mr. Tucker a pair, but to date there had been no sign of the little thing. Unbeknown to Alicia, that was all about to change that afternoon. Alicia had bought a bunch of colourful roses from Mr. Lancaster at the corner shop in town, and she'd made her merry way to the graveyard on her bicycle, as she regularly did. The cemetery greeted her again with its warm, very laid-back benevolence, for she had never found visiting this cemetery remotely sinister. Indeed, coming here, and sitting among the graves brought her so much comfort. These days Alicia and Cullen lived happily together in Primrose Cottage, so she was able to visit her mother's grave regularly, and it made her feel close to her mother. She placed the roses in a glass vase, which she filled with water, and put it on the gravestone. "Mum, it's me," she said. "I did the deed. Can you believe it? I did the deed, Mum. Believe me, it took so many guts. But finally I did it. I told Dad that I'm getting married to Cullen Tanner, and that we love each other very much. I don't think he was very impressed by the whole thing. The conversation didn't go as badly as I thought, though. I think he'll eventually come around. But let's just say I don't think he was best pleased, not exactly thrilled, so to speak." As Alicia said this, she observed a red cardinal perched on an overhanging tree branch. She almost went white. Was this a sign that she had her mother's blessing to marry Cullen? She was sure of it. The red cardinal was watching her through its dark eyes. Then it promptly flew away, and there were chills running down her spine. The good kind, of course. The graveyard remained very quiet, and Alicia sat by her mother's grave for a moment, enjoying the warm sunshine for a bit. All of a sudden she felt a presence. She turned around quickly, expecting to see Mr. Tanner standing there. But it was not Mr. Tanner she saw. It was the little Bigfoot that she'd seen the year before. Although he was now significantly taller, he was about 5 foot tall instead of 3. And in his hand he had a pear, which he handed to her. Alicia knew what to do. She took the pear and a bite out of it, and she exaggerated how much she was enjoying it. "This is delicious, yummy, yummy. Wow, what a treat! Thank you so much." His bright eyes grew round, and he looked delighted by Alicia's enthusiasm. But all of a sudden he looked nervously towards the woodgrove, as if he knew what he was doing was really naughty. There was a shrill whistle coming from the woods, and there again Alicia could see a tall figure that she couldn't make out very clearly, but she knew it was the Bigfoot's mother, obviously standing by the trees watching the pair of them. Alicia was sure the little Bigfoot would likely get into big trouble with his mother, because he gave her one more glance and then hurriedly darted back to the trees. Alicia could not help but chuckle to herself, wondering if she'd ever see the little Bigfoot again. He was probably in for quite the scolding with his mother right now. In the years that followed, Alicia sadly never saw the little Bigfoot again, although there were many times when visiting her mother's grave, she found there were pears left on the gravesite for her, which she was sure were gifted to her by the little Bigfoot. Alicia is now happily married to Cullen Tanner. She lives in Primrose Cottage, and the pair have 3 children together, 2 boys and a little girl. It would seem that Alicia's father has reached a place of acceptance in his life, so he regularly, with his Australian wife, visits the small town to see his grandchildren. It would seem the wounds of the past and all the pain after Alicia's mother's passing have been ironed away, and these days Mr. Tanner is a very happy man, no longer carrying the guilt around with him of what Tommy did all those years ago. So there you are. That's my story. Wow, what an incredible story that really pulls at the heartstrings. Until next time, goodbye and good night.